Dan Abrams knows the law. He's become America's best-known legal analyst, runs the Top Live Legal TV network, and is chief legal correspondent for ABC News. This is the Dan Abrams Show on POTUS, where politics meets the law.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. There is a headline on Mediaite.com, site that I founded. Headline, shock poll, half of Republicans believe false accounts of January 6th Capitol riots. This is not going to be my topic for the day. I'm going to be talking about Hunter Biden today. But it's connected, right? So this Reuters Ipsos poll found a large number of rank-and-file Republicans have embraced the myth. While 59% of all Americans say Trump bears some responsibility for the attack, only 3 in 10 Republicans agree. 8 in 10 Democrats and 6 in 10 independents reject the false claims. 8 in 10 Democrats and 6 in 10 independents reject the false claim that the Capitol siege was mostly peaceful or it was staged by left-wing protesters. Who are the 2 in 10 Democrats, by the way? Or, for that matter, the 4 in 10 independents? Capitol siege was mostly peaceful and it was staged by left-wing protesters? I mean, again, I'd love to know the 2 in 10 Democrats who believe that. Again, this is a very sad statement about half of the Republican Party, and this is why I've always talked about the 20 to 25%, right? I am unwilling to somehow lump all Republicans in together. And I think it's important to distinguish the fact-based Republicans from the ones who are living in the Trump fantasy land, where he won the election and somehow the Capitol siege was staged by left-wing protesters, etc. And this connects to something that Matt Gaetz said today in his investigation, right? He wrote an article on the Washington Examiner where he's talking about how he's going to fight. The swamp is out to drown me with false charges. I'm not giving up, right? It's all about showing you're ready to fight, right? That's all that matters. I want to be clear. There are exactly 0 credible accusers willing to come forward by name and state on the public record that I behaved improperly toward them. I'm not really sure how relevant that is to the investigation, right? Accusers willing to come forward by name and state on the... Why should a former 17-year-old have to come and state on the public record if it's true? Just as they falsely attacked President Trump as a Russian asset, he's trying to lump everybody else, right? Tried to do it with Tucker Carlson. Tucker wouldn't have it. So now he gets to just do it in an article. But one of the things that's most relevant for the purposes of what I want to talk about today, he says the Biden Justice Department would rather investigate me for adult consensual sex than Hunter Biden for his shady business dealings. And he goes on, then others for leaks, former Justice Department official for evident extortion, go figure. They are investigating Hunter Biden. What is he talking about? I mean, this is the problem, is you believe a guy like Gaetz, and it's just BS, right? The feds are investigating Hunter Biden, which is part of what he had to answer about in these interviews that he did for this new book he has out. He talks about the DOJ investigation. So again, don't be a sucker. And when I say a sucker, I mean a sucker to people like Gaetz or former President Trump when they want you to believe something that just isn't true. Like, that's a separate question from supporting them on policy, supporting their judges. It's completely separate. I'm just talking about facts. And that's what I'm going to go, by the way, that's what I'm going to do in this Hunter Biden interview. I'm going to go through the various things he said, and I'm going to comment on it, and then I'm going to ask you guys to weigh in. But all of these things are connected, right? Which is there's this portion of the Republican Party that wants to believe that somehow the Capitol siege was actually peaceful, despite the videos, despite all the evidence, despite the prosecutions. It's all, or some left-wing effort. So all the people in law enforcement and the FBI, et cetera, and the federal prosecutors who are bringing charges are all out to get Republicans, right? Because, Democrats, the lefties, they love law enforcement. So that's what they do for a career. They all go work at the FBI or as federal prosecutors. That's what the lefties do, right? Because they want to be in law enforcement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the Hunter Biden interview. He was on CBS on Sunday and then again this morning with Anthony Mason. And it's an interesting choice to go on CBS, right? The CBS Sunday morning show is a terrific show. But then you get stuck on the CBS morning show, which no one watches. I mean, really no one watches. But I guess it doesn't matter because the clips get shared, et cetera. But this is Hunter Biden. This is with CBS's Tracy Smith. And here he is talking about the DOJ investigation.
There's a current Department of Justice investigation into your finances.
Yep.
What is it about? Can you say anything more?
I can't, but I can say this, is I'm cooperating completely. And I am absolutely certain, 100% certain, that at the end of the investigation, that I will be cleared of any wrongdoing.
You're 100% certain?
I'm 100% certain of it. And all I can do is cooperate and trust in the process.
The investigation is, it seems, into his taxes in regard to deals he had in China and whether he paid certain taxes, et cetera. But listen to the difference between Hunter Biden talking about the investigation into him and Matt Gaetz, right? Matt Gaetz, it's all about, well, I'm getting investigated because I'm a conservative. I'm getting investigated because everyone's out to get me. I'm getting investigated because, because they don't have the time to investigate Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden is saying, I'm cooperating, and I'm going to be cleared. That's what a person, again, I don't know what's going to happen with the Hunter Biden investigation. But I do know that there's a big difference between saying, I'm going to cooperate and I'm going to be cleared, and these guys are out to smear me. Here's more of the, and this is now, he was asked about joining the board of Burisma, this Ukrainian energy company, while his dad was vice president. This is number 2.
Looking back, did you make a mistake taking a spot on that board?
No, I don't think I made a mistake in taking a spot on the board. I think I made a mistake in terms of underestimating the way in which it would be used against me.
But you must have seen the optics. Even back then, you must have, how could you not have foreseen that this was going to look bad?
Because I really didn't. I'm being as honest with you as I possibly can. All I know is that not one investigative body, not one serious journalist has ever come to the conclusion that I did anything wrong or that my father did anything wrong.
Well, this serious journalist will tell you that I think it was wrong for him to join the board of Burisma while his dad was vice president. That doesn't mean he was engaged in wrongdoing. But of course it was wrong. Meaning it was a dumb idea. Oh, the optics. No, it's more than the optics. It's a company that has serious, in a country embroiled in scandal, where his dad is involved in trying to oust the prosecutor, which had nothing to do with his position on the board of Burisma. At least there's no evidence to link them. But it was still a terrible idea. And I don't know why Hunter Biden won't just own up to say, look, it was a terrible idea. Because he previously said he regretted it. And now he's sort of like going back to the sort of Trumpian model of, I did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong. It's just that, my enemies are out to get me. So that was a little disappointing in that response. Now, this one on the laptop, right? Okay, so there was this laptop, and there was this random dude who apparently gave the hard drive to Giuliani, and it looks like, it's either a hard drive from Hunter Biden's email, from Hunter Biden's computer, that's 100% authentic. It's a hard drive from Hunter Biden's computer where some forgeries are included. Or it was stolen from Hunter Biden's computer in some way, shape, or form by the Russians or whoever else, and then disseminated. But there is no doubt that some of this stuff came from Hunter Biden. And so the big question, of course, has been, is it his, right? That doesn't seem like a hard question. Did you drop off your laptop? Some dude to fix it. This is what Hunter Biden said.
Was that your laptop?
For real, I don't know.
I know, but you know that this is.
I really don't know.
Okay.
The answer is.
You don't know yes or no if the laptop.
I don't have
was
any
yours.
idea. I have no idea.
So could have been yours.
Of course, certainly. There could be a laptop out there that was stolen from me. There could be that I was hacked. It could be that it was Russian intelligence. It could be that it was stolen from me.
And you didn't drop off a laptop to be repaired in Delaware?
Not that I remember at all. At all. So, we'll see.
Not that I remember? I mean, up to that point, I thought, all right, he's going to say, could have been stolen, could have been hacked. But I know I didn't leave it with some dude at some small laptop repair shop. Now it's not that I remember. I mean, our laptops are pretty important to us. Unless you have like 20 of them. I have one and a backup. I would definitely know if I left my laptop to get it fixed. So this is the point. There is embarrassing stuff on the laptop. We don't know. I mean, there's one email on there which, seems to suggest that a guy associated with Burisma got a hello with Joe Biden, which Biden denies, and it's sort of vague and unclear from the note exactly what happened. The rest of Hunter Biden's activities, etc., apart from Burisma, with China, and this is all after Joe Biden's president. So he then appears on the morning show this morning, and I think he wants to clean it up, right? So now he's asked about Burisma again, and here's what he tells Anthony Mason about if he would join Burisma.
The question of whether I would do it again, though, is no.
You wouldn't do it again.
I wouldn't.
He wouldn't because of the optics. Not because it was a dumb, wrong thing to do. Look, you had guys like George Kent, one of the people who testified in the impeachment proceeding, right, who was, very concerned about Trump's call on Ukraine. He was also concerned about the potential conflict of interest with Hunter Biden. Just say it was dumb. So here he is talking more about the Burisma stuff. This is number 5 with Hunter Biden with Anthony Mason.
You grew up in politics.
Yeah.
Did you not think you might be putting a big bullseye on yourself?
I didn't fully comprehend the level to which this former administration and the people around it would go.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between the politics that you're talking about in terms of the last, 40 years is a very different game. And I don't ever want to, again, to hand a weapon to people that would use it in a illegitimate way that they used the weapon of me against my dad.
Well, that's true. But, and there's no question that Donald Trump changed the rules of politics, right? Everything became more crude, more dishonest. But, again, he's just sort of claiming it's all the optics of it. By the way, I'm going to take your calls on this, 866-967-6887. In a few minutes, I have no guest. So now he's asked again. Anthony Mason comes back to this question about the laptop and whether the laptop was his. Here is Hunter Biden again addressing that question, number 6.
Is that laptop yours?
You don't need the laptop. You got a book. You get the book. It's all in the book. And I don't know. I truly...
You don't know?
The serious answer is that I truly do not know the answer to that.
Did you leave a laptop with a repairman in Wilmington?
Not that I remember. No. But whether or not somebody has my laptop, whether or not it was I was hacked, whether or not it exists a laptop at all, I truly don't know.
Are you missing a laptop?
Not that I know of, but, you read the book and you realize that I wasn't keeping tabs on possessions very well for about a 4-year period of time.
So, not that I know of, not that I remember. Now, I guess his claim is he was so high on drugs that he wouldn't even remember if he'd left a laptop to get repaired. I mean, again, I think that Anthony Mason should have done a better job of following up, by the way, and saying, so to be clear, you're saying it's possible that in a drug-induced stupor, you went to get a laptop fixed and don't remember it. Is that what you're saying? So, coming back to the investigation of him for his taxes, here's what Biden says about the possibility of a plea deal.
Is your legal team working on any kind of a plea deal?
Oh, no. I am absolutely certain that what we're doing is being completely cooperative with whoever is asking from any authority whatsoever.
That's the right answer. That's the right answer. Not attacking the prosecutors, not saying everyone's out to get me, not saying it's all because of who my dad is. I mean, this is, if the tables were turned and Matt Gaetz was being investigated for taxes involving China and Hunter Biden was being investigated for trafficking a 17-year-old girl, I think Hunter Biden would respond the way he did here. And Matt Gaetz would say, they're out to get me. Oh, my taxes. Oh, they're out to get me. They should be investigating illegal leaks. But here's the key, because you can tell where Hunter Biden has been hedging, right? Well, not that I know of, not that I recall. There's one thing that he is absolutely clear on, and that's this.
The implication all through the campaign was that your efforts had somehow benefited your father financially. Have you ever given your father money from any of your business ventures?
No.
Nothing?
Nothing. Ever.
Not a nickel?
Not a nickel.
Directly or indirectly?
Directly or indirectly. Not a nickel ever. 100%. No. Never.
And there's no evidence to support it. So you basically have a situation where Hunter Biden is this obsession of the right. Oh, he's being investigated for tax fraud. Let the investigation go. I mean, he had one very fair point in his interview where he said that, Ivanka and the Trump kids were able to make a ton of money. Well, Trump was president. I mean, a lot of what we're talking about with Hunter Biden was after Joe Biden was done. Which is why I started by talking about Matt Gaetz. Because he wants you to be thinking about Hunter Biden. What the heck? I mean, first of all, he's lying, saying that, oh, they shouldn't be investigating me. They should be investigating Hunter Biden. Oh. And I invited Matt Gaetz to come on the show, by the way. And I would love to ask him. So they are investigating him. Let's go to Deborah in Florida. Deborah, how you doing? What's going on? What do you got?
I'm doing great. Thank you for taking my call. I listen to your show a lot. I read your website, Law and Crime, and all of that. And, I understand you're trying to make a point between Gaetz and Hunter Biden. But, I just don't see the enormity of the Hunter Biden story. It has really nothing to do with our national security. It has nothing to do with anything. I mean, what was worse, Hunter Biden being on the board or our president, our former president, talking with the Ukraine president about getting dirt on Vice President Biden? What was more horrible?
There is no question that what Donald Trump did was way worse than what Hunter Biden did. No doubt about it. But he is still, A, the president's son. B, he's out with a new book talking about what happened. And C, he is an obsession of the right. And therefore, for all those reasons, it is absolutely newsworthy to talk about it.
All right. Well, I think we have a difference of opinion there, but it's just, when I think of Donald Trump's kids and all the shenanigans that they
I just said that.
Remember, well, but I don't see constant news stories about them.
Because
have you done an entire show? Have you done an entire show on Eric Trump or Donald J?
Because Eric Trump is not being investigated by the federal government right now. His charities are being investigated by the New York State, which we've talked about. And in the context of Hunter Biden, I very often bring up, as I just did before you called, Ivanka and Eric, and I've been very specific about the fact that Eric Trump had said that the family would stop doing deals abroad when Dad was president, but apparently that didn't stop them from expanding properties abroad, et cetera. But the notion that somehow I should ignore the Hunter Biden story because, according to you, and I think your view is probably shared by others, that somehow it is just a distraction, I don't think is fair, because he is being investigated. There was a laptop of his found which had some odd stuff on it, and I think it is well worth a discussion. But Matt Gaetz would say that I've spent too much time talking about Matt Gaetz. And look, Deborah, this is the problem with someone like me who is a political moderate. I'm going to get yelled at by people like you on the left, and I'm going to get yelled at by people on the right about, oh, you should cover this, you don't cover this enough, et cetera. I get it. I get where you're coming from, but I think we're just going to have to agree to disagree.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Like I said, I love your show, but I get tired of when, like, Elaine Chao, right, was being investigated by the Justice Department under Bill Barr, and nothing was ever going to happen. And that story was like, 45 minutes long, and then that was it.
Because Elaine Chao isn't as interesting as the president's son. I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, again, you can pick and choose. Again, Matt Gaetz would say, I've spent too much time talking about Matt Gaetz, right? I did 2 shows talking about Matt Gaetz. And he would say, that's too much time. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. So, look. Anyway, but thank you, Deborah. I appreciate you listening to the show. Let's do this. Let's take a break. I got no guests, just you guys and me. I'm talking about and I brought 3 things together at the top of the show. This poll that half of Republicans are somehow under are believing in the myth that somehow left-wingers were responsible for the Capitol riot. or that it was mostly a peaceful movement inside the Capitol. And Matt Gaetz claiming that the feds ought to be investigating Hunter Biden instead of him, even though they are investigating Hunter Biden. And then the Hunter Biden interview. And you've heard what I've said about each of his comments. In certain areas, I've challenged what he said. In certain areas, I have agreed with what he said. Coming right back with your calls in a moment.
The Dan Abrams Show. Call now, 866-967-6887. You're listening to POTUS, Sirius XM Channel 124.
Talking about the Hunter Biden interviews Sunday and Monday, where he couldn't seem to answer the question of whether he actually dropped off the laptop. And, I've laid out what I think the three possibilities are. Either the laptop was real, the hard drive was real with some forgeries, or that there was no hard drive in a computer left and that it was actually just hacked by the Russians. But regardless, at least the vast majority of what was on that hard drive clearly belonged to Hunter Biden. But he's also being investigated for tax fraud. And so when a guy like Matt Gaetz tries to distract you from his investigation by saying, why don't they investigate Hunter Biden? It's like, dude, are you paying attention at all? They are investigating him. And unlike you, he's just coming back and saying, I'm going to cooperate and I'm going to be exonerated. Okay. So that's where we are. Let's go to DJ in Texas. DJ, hey, what's going on?
Hey, it's CJ, but no.
CJ, sorry about that, CJ.
Oh, no worries. I love your show. You do a great job. But I got to disagree with you on this and agree with the last caller that I heard who was saying the bigger story here is the Trump kids and their financial shenanigans and profiteering from the presidency. Granted, what you're saying about the book and, the investigation, but honestly, it's, to my mind, there's not a whole lot of newsworthiness there. It's a story, yes, but the real story is the just financial abuse that has been perpetrated on this country by the Trump kids.
I mean, look, I'm not going to defend the Trump kids, right? So, as I've talked about numerous times on this program, and I have talked about the trademark applications in China, and I've said that I think that that's a bigger. If you want to turn that into a scandal, you could easily do it, and that if this were happening on the left, we'd still be talking about Ivanka Trump and the trademarks in China. But I promise when Ivanka Trump has a book out and she does an interview and is asked about it, I'll do it. In the meantime, Hunter Biden is finally addressing a lot of the questions that have been asked by a lot of people. And but most importantly, there remains no evidence that his dad was in any way involved in any of the stuff that he was doing. But look, you can. I appreciate you calling. Thank you. Let's go to Mike in New York. Mike, how you doing? What's going on?
Hey Dan, I know you said that you take crap from the people on the right and crap from people on the left, but somebody who's in the middle's got to give you a little bit of crap.
All right.
You mentioned Hunter Biden not being able to the way you phrase it.
Mm-hmm.
It's as if he's some type of degenerate. The man had a drug problem, and whether he knew he dropped off a laptop or not is kind of irrelevant. If he's in some type of drug addiction, I mean, how do you remember things like that happen when you're caught up in such a it's sad to see what happens with it.
I don't know. You talk to people, even people who are involved in drug addiction will, the notion that And, I know some of them very well. And the notion that somehow they wouldn't even know to this day if one, with a guy like Hunter Biden, right? I mean, he's to this day, he doesn't know if one of his laptops is missing.
Yeah, it is. It's questionable. But
I'm not saying he's a degenerate. I'm just saying I don't really believe it.
Okay. Yeah, but there's one, but you don't know it. So
I don't know it.
Okay.
No, wait a sec. But I can certainly develop informed opinions because I finally have the facts now. I have Hunter Biden's response, right, which is a non-response. So I can now use his non-response where he says, well, it might have been stolen, it might have been hacked, and,
form an opinion.
What?
To form an opinion, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
But I'm not saying I'm necessarily right on this. Look, I could be wrong that maybe it's possible that he literally was, so whacked that he doesn't recall if he dropped it off and doesn't recall to this day, can't figure out if there's a laptop missing. That's just, I find that very hard to believe.
But that doesn't hold up in court, right?
No, and the same way, look, I've said the same thing. I've gone through with different people when they make public statements, right? When we talked about Matt Gaetz, and he said that, he talked about this extortion stuff, et cetera, and he was the victim. And I said that the minute he transitioned to blaming the prosecutors, that is when I said, now I'm starting to think that this investigation is more serious than I had initially thought. Because I said on certain stuff, I said, look, I don't care if Matt Gaetz was engaged, was paying women to come on trips, et cetera, and this and that. And, there was one article, I think it was in the Times, where they tried to suggest that this could be forced fraud or coercion. I'm like, come on. He's not going to get charged for that. He's going to get charged if there was some proof that he was involved, paying for a 17-year-old to come have sex, et cetera. And my point is, I went through that and evaluated the credibility, in my view, of what he was saying. That is facts. Those are evidence, and I'm drawing conclusions from it. When I say to people, you have no evidence of that or no facts of that, these are people who are literally making things up. I'm responding to the actual words of Hunter Biden.
Gotcha. I understand. I understand how you were looking at it now. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Let's go to stay in New York and go to Nick. Nick, how you doing? What's going on?
Hey, Dan, I got two things, if you don't mind. One on Hunter Biden, one on Gaetz. Could you bear with me after you answer the first question?
Quick. Yep.
All right.
Yep.
So number one, with in regards to Hunter Biden, number one, just because they haven't found anything, okay, to me, that really doesn't say anything other than they hid their tracks very well. And I'll tell you why. Okay, unlike Hunter Biden, whether we agree or not, the Trump kids know the hotel business. They know properties. They know real estate. So when they're doing their business, even with Donald Trump in the White House, it's business as usual to a degree. It's like, this is what we do. Take now Hunter Biden. If he was like this world's expert on oil and gas and energy and his father just happened to be Joe Biden, I wouldn't even think two things of it. I'd be like, look, it might be coincidental. The very fact that the guy knows absolutely nothing about that industry, has no credentials, tells me there's no justification for him being on that board.
Okay, but let's
agree who he was.
Let's agree. Let's agree there was no justification for him being. Let's agree that Burisma wanted him because his name was Biden, and they thought that could help. Okay, let's assume that that's true. That doesn't go to the fundamental question that I'm talking about, which is he has been accused, and the right has tried to use against Hunter Biden this notion that somehow the lie that his dad persuaded the Ukrainians to fire this prosecutor to protect Hunter Biden's company. That's a myth. That's just a myth. And yet, when it comes to Ivanka Trump getting trademarks in China, 3 days later, her dad helps bail out a major Chinese energy company. Now, someone called in before and said, Dan, you haven't done a whole show on that. And that's true. I haven't. You know why? Because I don't know for sure what the connection is there, right? But if I want to create a scandal, I think I could create a scandal more easily and credibly about Ivanka Trump than Hunter Biden. That's my only point.
That's fine, but then really last point on Hunter Biden, did the interviewer ask him what business he actually had? What did he have to offer the board by sitting on there? And that's where he wouldn't be able to say, well, yeah, I'm an expert. I have a PhD in energy. He has nothing. There is absolutely no. It would be like me replacing you as a talk show host, and then you go, "Who is this guy? Who is this guy, Nick?" And then you find out that my father is some bigwig, and you go, there it is.
And,
no, there's
Nick,
nothing there.
But that doesn't prove any level of. That just proves my point that Hunter Biden never should have taken the position, right? And when he says, well, I would have, I didn't do anything wrong, I think there is simply something wrong with him having taken the job. But there's a difference between wrong and a scandal and illegal. And there's a spectrum. And what I think he did was wrong. I don't think it's a scandal, and I don't think it's illegal. But I agree with you that it's wrong, and I'm not going to defend him. You had a second question real quick on the other on get Matt Gaetz.
Right, well, that's precisely what you just said about what's wrong, what's legal, what's ethical. Look, I'm 46 years old, man. I have no interest in a 17-year-old girl and having any sort of relationships with her. Even though I live in New York, 17 is the legal consent age. I think you're sick if you're pursuing 17-year-olds.
Right, but in federal
law,
that's
a lot different than whether it is legal. So now that's where I'm going with this. So does Matt Gaetz have a point that if the legal consent of sexual consent is 17, I don't know what it is in Florida, I don't live there, then there's nothing there but a witch hunt, really, right?
Well, no. The bottom line is if the federal trafficking laws, which are different from just having sex with someone, right, which is enticing someone to cross state lines to have sex, if the and for money, if the age for that is 18, then it's a crime. It's not the same as the age of consent to have sex with someone in a state. Different laws.
A former one. What is the legal consent for crossing state lines?
It's 18.
Oh, wow. All right. Then thank you. That's why I called. Then hang them. I mean, if that's the case, I mean.
All right. Well, I don't want to hang them. But anyway, right. Nick, thank you. And again, I think proportionality matters too. I heard someone saying that he could face up to life in prison. That's crazy. If even if what he did is wrong, even if what he did is illegal, again, not everything in life, even wrongdoing, even things that are despicable, are the death penalty or life in prison or, anyway, take a break, come back with more of your calls in a moment.
This is the Dan Abrams Show, where politics meets the law. Listen whenever you want with the SiriusXM app, free for most subscribers. Download today and start listening outside the car.
We are back talking about a host of topics. Let's get right back to your calls. Let's go to Robert in California. Robert, how you doing? What's going on?
Hey, Dan. Thanks for taking my call. So I'm calling. Basically, I'm thinking about the conversations that you've had with callers already, and the newsworthiness of this story all circulates. So you've danced around this point already, but it circulates around the fact that Hunter Biden is selling a book. And the fact is, he's the one that's perpetuating this story even more. For the right wing, it's giving them more ammunition. Hunter Biden is basically in control of this. If he wanted to, he could totally stop talking about it, and it would slink away. I don't understand why people don't think that this is newsworthy. But on top of that, it's marketing more than anything.
Look, I agree. I mean, that's a very good point, that this would go away if he wasn't talking about it. And as I said, I wouldn't have done this topic, right, if he hadn't done 2 interviews where there was finally, the first time he speaks publicly about a lot of these topics. So thank you. Appreciate it. Let's go to Tom in Maryland. Tom, how you doing? What's going on?
I'm good. Thanks for taking my call, Dan. Up until about 2 weeks ago, I lived in Florida. Mm-hmm. And last year, our local rags ran a couple of days of stories about Matt Gaetz, in which Gaetz said that he had taken in a 12-year-old boy, adopted him, and raised him.
Nestor. Yeah.
Nestor.
Yep.
However, he also said he never formally adopted him. He just took him in and raised him.
Well, with his ex, right? Yeah, it was.
Excuse me?
With his ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Yeah. Yeah,
but
go ahead.
I do remember that he didn't go through any formal process.
Yeah.
And my question to you is that legal?
Yeah, I don't think there was any allegation that Matt Gaetz did anything illegal in the context of his, adopting his son. Adopting, not formally adopting, et cetera. So, there are no adoption
you refer
papers.
To him as his son.
He refers to him as his son, yeah. I mean, whether he's actually technically his son or not, to some degree, who cares, right? I mean, as long as there's no allegation of wrongdoing, et cetera, I don't think that there's any, is any reason to sort of start piling on because he's got his non-adoptive son. But thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. Let's go to Mark in Ohio. Mark, how you doing? What's going on?
Hey, Dan. I just wanted to point out there was a story this weekend I saw on CNN about Matt Gaetz. And, when I first heard this, him having or being with a 17-year-old, I thought it was kind of odd and weird. But allegedly there was a points game between him and a bunch of the Florida representatives when he was in the state house. And apparently you got points for having sex with women, and you got extra points for having sex with virgins, which adds an entirely different layer into why he would be with a 17-year-old girl.
Well, look, if it's but again, I don't want to start defending that because I found even just the idea that he was showing naked pictures to other members of Congress very disturbing. But look, I don't know exactly what that was. I don't know. We don't know if the virgins were 21 or whatever the case. I don't know. Look, I don't know. But what I'm not going to do is assume that therefore it's more illegality. So thank you. Appreciate it. Let's go to Les in Seattle. Les, how you doing? What's going on?
Hi, how you doing, Dan? I mean, the gentleman from California called a few calls ago. I thought was very much on target, in that Biden is doing pretty much the standard book promo. I mean, that's what people do.
Yeah.
And but however, I think his response to the laptop was quite sloppy, and he probably has a staff of some level that do that. It may be true. He may not have a clue, but what amazes me, and anybody in my age group, I think I'm confident will tell you, that social media has changed the environment so much that, for example, Fox News gets around these topics that they want to discuss by simply not talking about them, omission, and which I find very extremely disingenuous, but that's the environment with such we live.
Absolutely. So, Les, thank you. Appreciate it. Let's stay in Utah. Go to Stephen. Stephen, how you doing? What's going on?
I'm good, Dan. Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to push back a little bit because you said that Anthony Mason should have followed up and basically questioned him and said, well, in a drug-induced stupor, you might have done this. That would have just created more sympathy for him. And the reality is I got 8 laptops. I got 6 of them in my closet that I don't use anymore. If anybody
and it's possible that you would not remember one of your laptops being delivered to a repair shop and forgetting it there.
That's the point I was going to make. My wife, while cleaning, got rid of 2 of them. I had no idea until 7 months later. when some guy called me because he had opened up, he'd bought on eBay this laptop that my wife had donated, and I got contacted by this guy saying, hey, I think I got one of your laptops. Might have been stolen. It wasn't. My wife had donated it. But 7 months later, I got a call from a guy who had my laptop.
Yeah, but you weren't the one who gave it away, right?
No, I wasn't.
But that's the point, is Hunter Biden is saying he doesn't know if he did or didn't. And when you know what else? When you're the former vice president's son and, it's your laptop, I think the idea that the former vice president's son, look, it is possible. I believe that in a drug-induced stupor, you don't remember a lot of stuff. I know that to be true. But the notion that he can't say for certain, not that I recall, that he may have brought his laptop in to be repaired, forgot it there, and then never noticed that the laptop, wasn't there, to me just, is, I just find it hard to believe. It's always possible. I just find it hard to believe. That's it. So thank you. Let's go to Little Rock and Lane. Lane, I got a minute left. What do you got?
Yeah, man, same thing. I think if you frame this perfect, I have multiple laptops over the years. I've been a functioning alcoholic. I've been high. I do drugs too, but I would never forget if I dropped off a laptop to get it repaired, even though I was intoxicated. I don't know what kind of drugs he was on. Maybe he was on heroin or some hard stuff, opioids that make you forget things. But, I like the way you frame the discussion where this is a story because he's writing a book. Matt Gaetz is a story, obviously. Just wanted to say that. I just don't know how you don't remember taking a laptop in to get it repaired.
I agree. And look, thank you, Lane. Appreciate it. And, this offers I think a good point to end the show on, which is, I get it that we've gotten to a point where people are so angry all the time. Why isn't the Hunter Biden story getting more coverage? Says people on the right. Well, what about Ivanka Trump and the trademarks? What about Eric Trump? Why aren't you covering? Okay. You know what? Those of us in the middle can do both. Those of us who are moderates and who focus on facts can do both. I can focus on all of this stuff.